whatever our audience, which is very small, but again, like there's not many people who go through that.
Right.
But what we've seen is every single one thinks, pretty badly of them because you're facing so many bad things all the time, to a point that the good news don't even matter. They just become you have a good news and you're like, oh my god, this good news will become bad news at one point. That's one way of you have to deal with it. But to me, the main message is normality. We're just, no one talks about these things because you can't really talk about these things. But it's like, if you feel like you're a piece of shit, that you wasted your life, that your startup is not working at all, like, it's just part of the process. It's right.
Back for this week of another messy middle.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in San Francisco. It's
Woo!
pretty messy out here. It's foggy today. There was a tornado warning last Friday. Or maybe it was Saturday. It was Saturday. Last Saturday. We got in late Friday night. No, we didn't. We got in during the afternoon. We went to bed very late. And at 5:45 a.m., both of our phones went off with that, warning of extreme weather warning, tornado in the area.
It's
And
like
there
an
was a
Amber Alert kind of
there's an
thing.
Amber Alert for a
Wow,
tornado.
I hate
It
those.
didn't actually happen here, and Nastia said she slept through it. But like, if it actually did happen, I'd be like, oh my God. But it was scary. I think there was a tornado in Santa Clara or something, but it's very near. And like, you see it, and you're like, oh, wow, because they're not supposed to have tornadoes in Northern California. But I think that's a good segue into, like, I'm out here. I'm meeting with a few friends, post-exit founders, but I'm also seeing a few startups that I've known for a while where they're hitting the end of their their cash pile, and they're just burning the rest of their cash.
Hmm.
And one of them has like 3 weeks left, and there is a ton of money. And what's interesting is I don't know what they're gonna do. Uh,
When did they raise? Is it like crypto money or AI money or what was the how long
it
it
was
took them?
ZERP money. It was ZERP money.
Reserve money.
So neither crypto nor AI. But it's one of those things where they've hit this period where the timing is really difficult at the
Mhm.
end of the year. And we're doing our end of the year projections for next week. That's going to be a really fun conversation. And I think this is an important time to do end of year reflections. And we wanted to kind of do a concise sort of conversation here. And why does this fit in with the company that, the companies my friends are running out of money? Because you got to make a decision. Should you fire all your staff? Should you, go into like survival mode and try to raise more? Should you try to sell the company, or do you shut it down? Um, and I think the end of the year is a good time period for that. Um, Frank, am I just blabbering on here, or what do we want to conclude on for end of the year stuff with the messy middle?
I don't know. At this point, I just asked ChatGPT what it thinks instead of what I think. We can ask.
Yeah.
I should, but no, you are blubbering. The
At least he's honest.
I mean,
Teddy, you've got your nose thing on still. So is this going to be a constant throughout our episode?
it's fine. It's fine. Let's talk about the your friends. I mean, like, to me, it's very common. Like, again, like, the what happened when you're low on cash. Like, usually you bridge. I mean, like, there's.
Yeah.
I mean, if you, unless you raise from stupid investors, although I don't like the term stupid, but they do exist. There's no investors that doesn't anticipate that. It's so common. Like, anyone who invests knows at one point there's going to be an ask for a bridge, and that's usually a good thing for investors because then that's when they can grab a lot
Yep.
of cheap equity.
Yep.
Um, and so, it's business as usual. I guess in San Francisco that shouldn't be an issue. In France, maybe a little harder.
And
But
I'm
I
always
mean,
curious
to
for
me,
the bridge.
if you're an investor and someone tells you, "Oh my God, the startup is running out of cash, but we still have growth," I'm like, "But it's okay. Well, like, how much do you need and how much do I get?" That's all. Like, and if a startup is like, you know what, we're burning cash and we couldn't figure out a thing, there's no growth, there's no hope, or like, well, then let's sell it. And
Yep.
if you cannot sell it, then okay, let's shut it down and let's try.
Right.
That's
And
all.
and VCs normally are pretty happy regardless of the
There's no
outcome because
emotion in that. It's just like,
but they've also all made their management fee already.
Yeah, you're just the statistics and some stuff. So like again, like it's I know you get emotional as a founder because it's your role to be into it. It's your maybe you spend 5 years in your life, and at the end, the one who lose the most are going to be founders. You know, you feel like you're losing reputation. You feel like shit. You spend 4 or 5 years in your life on something that doesn't take off.
Yep.
You have to let employees go, like before Christmas, at the end of the year.
Yep.
You have to tell your investors you're a failure and it didn't work. But in the grand scheme of things, like business as usual, you have to be like,
well, that's
you have to be you're an element in a capitalistic system that took a risk and where the risk had potential high reward and balance with high failure rate. And that's it. Just be like, well, my hypothesis was wrong. Okay, that's it. You know, I still gave jobs to a bunch of people for a couple of years. I moved stuff, experienced stuff, I learned some stuff, and that's it. Anyway.
As long as you're transparent with your employees as well, like they should know what they're getting into, right? If they're getting
that's tricky. I'm not sure. That's a tricky one. Because until the last minute you have to be super positive because it might still work. If you start
what I'm saying is from the beginning, they're joining a startup. They should know that it's a high risk ride. They can be fired any day. I mean, sure, you need to be optimistic, but they also have to have some expectations. That's the type of the deal.
The same. I always assume people are not idiots, and so it's like you're making a contract with a startup. You know what you're getting into. Might work, might not work. If you take the contract, it's your responsibility. And then and then if everything goes well, goes well. If it doesn't goes well, again, it's life.
I think you're right. It's your responsibility, but I also think there is a communication that needs to be done, and the communication should be upfront and not all rosy. And I think you should communicate it. Now, you don't have to communicate it entirely to the whole team to freak everybody out.
There's no rules. There's different style, right? So I think that's all that matters. It's like your style, Teddy's style, my style would be different. I guess my style would be in a way very transparent. I don't see anyone who would be like surprised by something like that happening. With my style, they'd be, But I guess the thing would be like, guys, I totally get it if you want to leave, but if you stay, there's a big chance we'll raise again and that you guys will be badass. And if you leave, then that's fine too, but then fuck you.
Yeah, that's the way to go.
Like if you jump off the boat when everything's bad.
It's a little bit harsher than I was expecting.
No, but I mean, it's not fuck you, but it's like, you see what I mean? It's like, if people leave when everything is hard, then it's it's a good thing. Like, please go.
Right. Yeah, because they might not be there when it's hard and gets even harder.
Yeah, but there's also different private lives. People go through different phases, so it may not be just black and white. Right. You cannot just judge people by that decision. I mean, it's fine. Right. You need people who would be.
You don't judge. No one judge people No one judge people. Like when you run a startup, or I guess in general in life, no one cares enough. It's just like you're like, okay, tell me yes, no, and then that's fine. I don't care about the why, the thing. Like it's one way to see society. The other way to see society is you have to organize everything, which is like makes everybody's issue your issue, which is really hard.
Right.
It's too many issues. Anyway, so I hope that answered your questions for your friends. If they somehow watch that thing, is like it's totally normal. You have to pick one. I remember a friend who had similar thing, and it was around the same time of the year, and he was literally crying. And the next day, he was supposed to shut down the company. And then he got a bridge, and then a year later, he sold the company and made tons of money. So, Christmas miracles happen.
Of course. And what I've also told a lot of my friends these days that go through this stuff, I said, just try not to be so emotional about it. It's very hard not to, but it's like, the worst thing that can happen is your company dies. Who gives a shit?
It's like the jokes I like. I don't know if you know Viva la Dirt Lib. I like these guys. They have funny skits on video games theme, and they're based in New Zealand. But they had one like that where the guys were like, I think like going to a therapist, but it was like an awful therapist who was just like, don't be so emotional about it. Just have to be happy, like, or don't be depressed. It's like you it's like it's not gonna help. People will be emotional. It's like if you have a breakup, it's okay. There's no more people. But I know what you mean. It's like it will be okay. Which I guess again, it's I don't know what we talk about today. If we want to talk about the overall thing for the year, but to me the main message is whatever our audience, which is very small, but again, like there's not many people who go through that.
Right.
But what we've seen is every single one thinks, pretty badly of them, because you're facing so many bad things all the time, to the point that the good news don't even matter. They just become you have a good news, and you're like, oh my god, this good news will become bad news at one point. That's one way of you have to deal with it. But to me, the main message is normality. We're just, no one talks about these things because you can't really talk about these things. But it's like, if you feel like you're a piece of shit, that you wasted your life, that your startup is not working at all, like, it's just part of the process.
You're not alone.
But every founders go through that. It's almost like this, this Lawrence of Arabia. I think we talked about it recently, so it's fresh in my mind. But the analogy of putting your hand through a candle, through the flame of a candle, and then the guy say, how do you do it? And it's like, the trick is to not care. It's like it's kind of a main message. You're an entrepreneur. You're just like, just to ignore the suffering, and it's normal. Or talk to someone about it, whatever. But it's it's just part of a job.
Yeah. So when you picked, because we decided to do it. Okay, so end of the year stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What do we want to talk about? Like, I don't remember what we talked about last year at the end of the year, because we were only like 8 episodes into the podcast.
I did bet that China would invade Taiwan. I wasn't sure about this one. It doesn't look like.
I know, but that's next week.
I still have 15 days.
Those are our predictions. I'd say less predictions, like more like.
Okay, guys.
What do we feel?
We'll do prediction at the next episode.
Yeah. What do we feel at like the end of the year versus how we felt at the beginning of the year with some of the things that we've done? I mean, Frank, you and I were in Iceland together. So we were physically present together.
I can't remember if I was stressed about AI already at the beginning of the year. Was I?
Yes. You were stressed that you're gonna miss.
I feel less stressed about AI now because I feel like things are slowing down a little, so it's more digestible. There's still a lot of unknown, but number one, as usual, I feel good about my interpretation of things, like where I'm like, oh, I think that's that, and then 6 months later, people kind of agree on that. So I'm like, so I feel better about it. Like, it's very clear to me that now the world we're entering in has like at least 10 years of work to implement this AI thing, just with what we have now.
Mm-hmm.
And that, again, this whole thing about like, oh, it's not a real AI startup if you're not spending $20 million to train your own model is bullshit. But the truth is, what we call wrappers, and again, like after that you can go to the definition, but whatever, like a wrapper of a rapper with
Kanye West, Rihanna.
Yeah, so rapper.
Rihanna's not a rapper.
With whatever, with now what people would call agents, which is like an instantiation of an LLM with some memory. Whatever, there's plenty of work to do, and there's very few people who can do it. So I think it's like a great golden age for founders right now, where you just have to wake up and push this thing, because there's like a mountain of cash that needs to be allocated towards pushing these things. And, and I don't see a lot of people talk about the bubble because the valuations are going crazy right now. But at the same time, I'm still convinced, might be wrong, but I don't see anything popping for at least a year and a half.
I tend to agree with that.
Because if you measure the bubble by the valuation in ratio to the revenue, we're like light years away from 2000. 2000, you had gigantic valuation with no revenue. And
what are you guys seeing for, but maybe slightly diverging from the main topic, but in terms of fundraising, we always say that towards the end of year, holidays, blah blah, it's bad to fundraise.
So
but it seems like there's like this AI fury in AI, it's slightly easier. No,
it's never easy. Yeah,
of course, but like the expectations that we have going into the end of the year, it's always like it's end of year, no one really pays attention, don't try to fundraise. But it seems that people are raising, like there's a lot going on.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's raising all the time, but it slows down at the end of the year for sure. And the other thing that's happening is, even though everybody wants to invest in AI, the funds are not structured for that. Like, they didn't have time to structure AI funds, they don't have LP for that. They kind of have an existing fund with an existing thesis, so they're going to try to do AI in whatever they did. And so I feel like by mid next year, you will start to have like funds with LPs, with people like really, really everywhere aligning on feeding stuff. And there's going to be funds about agents. There's going to be funds about models. There's going to be funds about, like specific technologies, specific verticals. And that's going to really make things easier. Right now, it's just like, we have a little bit of we have a little bit of money left, and let's sprinkle it on that. But it's not. It's like it has to fit the thesis all upside down. So I think that's why right now it's not easy to raise still. You would think it's easy, but I think the vehicles are not ready. And my bet is next year, especially with Trump and the US economy at least looking very focused on itself. Like in the US, it's going to be great. I think Europe, I'm not so sure. That's an open question for Europe.
Europe can be challenging.
Yeah, maybe.
But it also, maybe it might not be. I mean, there's two sides of the coin in Europe right now. One is where they're scared shitless about what's going to happen, or the other is you've got with Draghi, right, where they want to make Europe great again, quote unquote.
And that's a good point. That's a good point. But again, you have to keep in mind, like anytime. I mean, I would say most of the VCs in Europe are like backed by Europe, and when you are, there's like so many strings attached.
Oh yeah.
And again, now on top of that, you're a founder in Europe. You want to copycat a US startup, which is what 99% of successful startups in Europe are. And then you need to do that while dealing with, you'll need pretty good lawyers, with a super complex AI Act law you have to follow, where even OpenAI, who's like sitting on billions of dollars, doesn't launch their product by delay them by month. And so imagine like a poor guy with a startup is going to cost you a lot just to explore stuff.
So I think, Ted, you asked a good question about the beginning of the year to the end of the year of sort of the funding and sort of the funding environment. Yeah. I think next year is going to, we're not talking about predictions, but I think it's still challenging.
I'm pretty sure we're talking about predictions, right?
But not like prediction like we did last year. Yeah. It's still hard.
It's the beginning of a bubble. It's going to be fun. Like bubbles are great. Yeah.
At the beginning of the year, I mean, from even a personal side, I think all of us probably set goals and where we're at, and I do my 5-year plan, and I'm at the end of the year. Right, we're all at the end of the year, but
makes you a communist.
Very much so.
Comrade Gabriel, I made my 5-year plans. Did it work?
Yeah, it's been great, actually.
No, but because I'm very curious about number 5. Like 5 is really exactly the Soviet way of planning stuff. That's why I'm wondering. Should be a year. So sorry. So you're starting your new cycle now?
No, I'm not. Next year is the end of the 5-year plan, 2025.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, but I'm finishing the current 4th year of the 5-year plan. And I'm reviewing it next week to see where I've landed with the stuff. Most of the qualitative goals I've accomplished. The quantitative goals I never hit, but whatever. I did fine. I've had a lot of nice fancy meals and trips, and I'm not going to miss any meals, as people say. But I told myself I was going to move at some point this year, and I've just moved around. I didn't actually move officially, so that qualifies. I wanted to really see Tectalia succeed and be the best one. That was great. One of them was the podcast. Wanted us to do for the full year, so I was excited about that. And I wanted to come up with a new company, which I didn't do. But you know what? That's okay, because I still had income. And that was a big learning that I didn't expect. So for next year, I think I want to add in make sure you have some consulting income, because it's nice to get a check. Happy holidays, but it's
no, I agree. If anything about this podcast is I really want us to be at ease about talking about money and being a post-exit founder, because that's the biggest thing. No one talks about that. You're not going to be the same guy if you made a $10 million exit than if you made a $500 exit. And again, we go back to this tweet I commented this week where the guy was saying my startup is not working well, and I feel like I'm unemployable, because you're a founder and you have no clue about what's your value, what you can do. You really feel like, holy shit, my source of income is not working. And my backup source of income doesn't look like it's working neither. And I guess the message to all the founders is don't worry about it. If you had any idea about how much money people get paid to do things that are like super dumb, you have no idea your value is like gigantic. It's like you're. That's why it's funny because I'm starting to write this blog post we talked about, and I start to talk about that. Like I talk about Recorp. The whole reason I created this consulting firm was to show that you have a lot of value. Now it would be even easier to market. It's like it's founder mode as a service. And the statistics is if you build a $1 million company, it's harder to achieve that than to be selected at Harvard Business School. But a guy at Harvard would go to BCG and be billed like $4,000 or $5,000 a day. So you have to realize you're extremely valuable. So don't worry about it.
But as you and I know, if you don't have the BCG, McKinsey sort of credentials, they're not going to pay you $4,000 to $5,000 a day unless you get.
No, they bill you 5,000.
Yeah, they bill you.
They pay you
you're shit. Not getting that money.
They pay you like shit, and they give you whatever, like nice perks, like a little badge and a tap on your back, and say, "Oh my god, you're amazing!" Like, oh wow, you pay people with compliments. It's crazy works.
Yeah.
Genius.
Yeah.
Okay.
So next week we've got our predictions.
Yeah.
So we'll be working on them. I think from a conclusion, this year we've accomplished a lot. And
I'm not sure I accomplished a lot on my end. I feel like I'm still.
I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about the podcast.
Okay. No, but I thought we were talking about each of us because you talked about your 5-year plans.
I'm kidding. But I'm saying, well,
on mad, I felt like I don't know what the feeling is, but this feeling when you go to a beach and the current is pushing you, like a wave comes, and you fight the wave, and it's like it takes a lot of energy, and then the waves goes away, and then you realize you didn't move at all. That's kind of how it feels right now for me.
I don't know. Spending your working, not going to the beach. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm a pretty skinny guy. When I'm at the beach, I move around a lot.
Yeah. So the wave will just smash you.
I'm not a fucking whale.
Okay, whatever. Maybe some
I know what you mean.
I know what you mean. Well, that's not what I mean.
I know what you mean.
You just feel like I'm investing a lot of time, a lot of energy, and I don't have any fruits. But
you're in the same place.
It takes time to grow trees,
That's how I feel about the year. I think it's, and that's probably also my quote for the day. And you know this, it happens gradually, then suddenly. And I feel like I have this feeling for the year as well. It starts with a great hope and you have plans and everything. And then you realize that you're nowhere to accomplishing those goals around September, at least for me. And then October comes and November comes and like everything just happens like super fast. And December, like it's just a lot of things at once. And you realize it's okay. It was really slow. It was really terrible process. And you felt like you're not accomplishing anything, but then somehow everything.
Yeah. You remind me of a quote, but I can't remember who said it. I think it was Alan Poe, but I'm not sure. When someone was asking him to check if it was him, but someone was asking him, "How did you become poor?" And he said, "Very slowly at first, and then suddenly very fast."
That's actually the quote from Ernest Hemingway. It's about bankruptcy.
Hemingway.
That's true.
So it was Hemingway.
It's about bankruptcy. That's how you go into bankruptcy.
It's like very slowly at first, very slowly at first, and then very fast.
Gradually,
exactly. How did you go bankrupt? 2 ways: gradually, then suddenly, right? So,
but I think it's the opposite also for great things. I mean, that's how I feel about the year. It doesn't have to be bankruptcy. It's just.
I'm obsessed with incrementals. I agree. It's like baby steps.
Yeah.
It's kind of how it works in life, unless you're extremely lucky and you hit the lottery, and not the lottery like the actual lottery, the startup lottery or the founder lottery, and
exactly. I mean, if you're somehow like computer science, went to Stanford, and just graduated with a PhD in how to make LLMs like 2 years ago, and congratulations, you.
That's your shot. You might never get it again, so take advantage of it and don't be an idiot. That's what I would say.
Well, the same guy who did the same thing 10 years ago is like fucked because like no one cared about AI. It was the useless thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Good.
Next week. Talk to you guys
next
later.
week. Bye.